What's up everyone? 2 videos in 2 days. What am I like? But let's talk about more support from Photon Hypernova and let's talk about spring guns. Now, a disclaimer, okay, I do not own a copy of Therion King Regulus at the moment, but it is definitely a card you should consider playing in this deck. The brand new Xyz can search it and it is very useful. However, that does not stop this deck from being able to do some really cool combos and be able to do some really cool things. This is pure Springans. We're not including any of the weird Kelbeck and Mudora stuff because quite frankly I've seen enough of Ishizu and no one wants to see the same tired old boring Ishizu, Tearlament, Fluanderees, deck lists. It's all the same and we want to keep things budget, we want to keep things as happy as possible. And once again, this isn't a meta deck channel. It can be if the time comes, but like at the moment in time, a deck like Kashtira and the closeness to the ban list is, I can't really justify talking about meta decks, and this should be about giving people who want to play certain archetypes and themes something to work with without having to break the bank. Now, let's begin. So, I'm going to start by talking about the main deck, and we are very excited to be including 3 copies of Springans Kit. This card is incredible in this deck now because you can search Branded in High Spirits, which in turn can pitch a Springans to search, well, another copy of itself, dump Iron Dash Dragon, and you get your Springans summon at the end of the turn, and it is incredible. It just makes everything work, and yeah, like I can potentially show you a combo at the end of this video, depending on how quickly we get through it. Now, 3 copies of Rocky. Rocky adds a Springans monster or a Sandsea Golgonda from grave to hand if summoned, which is really good. All of the Springans have the effect to be able to attach themselves to a Springans XYZ monster on the field from hand, graveyard, or field, basically. The only card that has an additional bonus is the Springans Captain Sargus, which gives them additional 500 attack. Brothers, if sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, can special summon a Springans monster from the graveyard. It does target, but the good thing about Springans is, other than kit, they are all fire, which is fantastic. Pador is pretty good. You contribute it to target Springans in your graveyard and special summon it. This is really useful if you've expanded a Merrymaker or a Explorer and you just want some additional recursion. People that are playing the Ishizu version of this deck don't really run this at multiples, if at all, but when you're playing it pure, it is a very good card to have. Not to mention you can machine duplication it. 2 copies of Springans Branger. This can be played at 3. If it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and another Springans monster to search any Springans card from your deck to your hand. The amount of searching this deck has now is bonkers. And yeah, like it being a level 8 also has some applications. 500 attack as well, so if you play a 3rd copy you can machine dupe that as well. 2 copies of Captain Sargus. You need to play 2 copies of this because you want one to be summoned off of Sprint and you want another one for backup. It can be a brick if you draw it. You can play 1 or 2, but I've opted for 2 because it's another additional card and yeah, it's really good. It's disruption on your opponent's turn because if you summon it out and it's your opponent's turn, you can detach an Xyz material from a monster on your field to pop a card, and this will trigger the brand new Sargus as well as do some other crazy stuff. So yeah. Now for disruption, if we are talking about what's going to be coming up soon, Flu and Kashtira are going to be really good anti-tier decks that people are going to be playing, and they rely on banishing a lot, so why not play a card that stops the opponent from banishing? Let's say hello to Artifact Lancier in the format again. This can be any other card, but I've showed off Lancier today because it's one of my personal favourite hand traps of all time, and yeah, I quite like it. Now, for Tally-Ho Springans, this is... You'd need to double take to read this because by itself it can search any Springans monster from your deck, which is really good. But you can detach any number of... you can detach up to 3 materials from monsters you control on activation of this, and Other than searching the Springan's monster with its effect, if you detach materials at activation, you can special summon up to that many Springans from your hand or graveyard. So you detach 3, search your Springans, and then you can summon up to 3 from your hand or grave. So it's kind of a soul charge as well. It's mental. And next turn, say if you want to get it back from your graveyard, it's got an effect for that, because in the main phase, if it's in your graveyard, you can target an Xyz on the field, any Xyz on the field. So this will be quite good against Kashtira Arise Heart. If it's low on materials and it keeps sucking materials up, you can detach material from it and stop it from potentially banishing one of your cards, and then you can add it back to your hand. However, granted, you can only use one of its effects per turn, so just bear that in mind. Great Sand Seagull Golgonda has come back, whilst giving your bounced Xyz monsters the ability to trigger this and stop your opponent's monsters from potentially attacking. It also gives a great attack buff, and if you control no Springan's monsters, you can pitch a Springan's card from your hand to just spit any Springan's Xyz out of your extra deck. You are playing 3 booty. Like Golgonda, if a Xyz hops off the field while booty's out on the field, you can target an effect monster on your opponent's field and you can negate its effects until the end of the turn. Just bear in mind that you can't really do this in activation to a monster's effect on summon, because it will activate on a new chain. But it does search out Golgonda, it activates from deck, so it cannot be ashed. Springan's Watch is basically Vessel for the Dragon cycle, but for Springans. So by itself it searches Golgonda, but if Golgonda's on the field, you can both search and dump any Springans. So yeah, you've got some really good synergy with that. Now, a card that I have no idea why people aren't playing, Sprite Smashers. It's an emergency teleport for Springans, and you know, if you've got a Link 2 monster on the field, it can also non-targeting banish. So yeah. Here is my controversial pick. I like machine duplication, and as soon as I saw machines with 500 or less attack in the deck, I decided to play it. 1 copy of Branded in High Spirits, 1 Called by the Grave, and 1 Blast. Branded in High Spirits I will explain to you in the combo. For the extra deck, we're playing 2 of the brand new Gigantic Champion Sagas. This card is bonkers. Basically, if it has material, you can search any Therion or Springan's card from your deck to your hand, and if a material is detached from a monster on the field, except during the damage step, you can target a card on the field and either destroy it or bounce it, meaning that it can bounce pesky Tearlament cards back and stop them from triggering after being destroyed, which is, you know, you don't want to be destroying those cards. We're playing Free Merrymaker for the grind game. You're going through these a lot more than you'd expect, so it's quite important. Yeah. 1 Explorer, this is your removal. It's non-targeting destruction, and it just blows up cards. You fill it up with materials, blows everything up, and it gets quite big, which is really good. And also Merrymaker is able to start all your combos. Both of these have the effect to hop off the field, which can help you dodge targeting removal and stuff like that. For generic rank 4s, we're running Abyss Dweller for tier, we're running Time Thief Redoer, and Baguska. Redo is really good in combination with the new Sagas, because when you use its effect, it detaches the materials and it can trigger it and hop off the field. So you are giving yourself an additional ability to just sort of trigger that. 1 copy of Zeus for those boards that are even harder to get around. And for some links, we're running IP, probably the best generic link to go into. Unicorn, because you can turn it into an indestructible unicorn with IP and bounce another card as part of your combo. 1 Phoenix for back row removal, as well as another link 2 that you can banish off of Smashers, and 1 Appaloosa for those times you have to set Tally Ho and soul charge in your opponent's turn with IP up. You can bring out a load of Springans and basically just go into Appaloosa like that, which is really good, because I don't believe there's a card in Springans that hard locks you into the deck, into the archetype. So 1 Sprint, this is part of the combo. Now, If you do excuse me, I will zoom out a little bit and hopefully be able to show you a combo. Now, what you're going to need is kit and a Springan's name. We'll go with Pedor, the one people don't really like. So we're starting with kit. We'll normal summon it and we'll use its effect to search out our copy of Branded in High Spirits, which will activate. So we will be revealing the Pedor. The Spring gets sent to the graveyard and the Pedor gets pitched, and you're able to search another copy of Springan's kit because it mentions Fallen of Albaz. Now, because you have a fusion monster in your graveyard, you can special summon this kit out to the field, and then you can immediately exceed them into a Merrymaker, which will, on summon, send Brothers to the graveyard, and you can use that Brothers effect to revive the, not the Iron Dash, the Pedor you pitched. Then you can use the Brothers in Grave and attach it to the Merrymaker, and then we can slap the Sargus onto the Merrymaker. The best thing about Sargus is that you can use any Springan's Xyz monster to Xyz summon it, much like Dingirsu. We're going to use Sargus's effect, we're going to search Tally-Ho, and we're going to activate it, detaching from Sargus, Kit, Brothers, and the other kit as well, leaving it only with Merrymaker as material. Off of that, we're going to search for Branger, and we are going to special summon out the Branger, the kit, and the Brothers from Grave. We're going to overlay the Brothers and the kit into any rank 4 of your choosing. It could be Merrymaker, it could be anything else, but for this we'll just go with Redoer. And then you can use the Branger and the Pedor on one side to go into IP Masquerena. Bear in mind this is with 2 cards, so you'll have additional discards to pitch off of your IP plays. And from here you can use Branger to banish itself and another to search any Springan's card. So you'll search Springan's Blast. I didn't talk about Springan's Blast in the deck profile because I think I missed it off. This card is a really good search off of Branger, so just bear that in mind. If you control a Springan's monster, you can basically target an effect monster your opponent controls in a zone and have its effects negated, or if no monster is in that zone, they can't use the zone, which is really good. So yeah, you set the Springan's Blast, and during the end phase you'll trigger the effect of the Iron Dash you sent to the grave to bring out Captain Sargus. So here we have a quick effect bounce, the ability to tag into Unicorn with IP, so that's 2 disruptions. We've got a 3rd disruption on the form of Blast, and we've got a 4th disruption in the terms of Sargus. If you have Regulus and you've opened Tally-Ho as part of your opening hand, this is a multiple negate board, so yeah. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Apologies I didn't mention Blast earlier on enough, but I've chosen this as my chosen Springan's Trap to use because I found it quite handy. But try Interluder and also try the other one, Call, because that can help revive your card as well. But yeah, this has been the deck profile, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.